Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be talking about the top 10 things to stop doing in Google Ads today. And as a digital marketing agency, we've managed and seen hundreds of accounts. And often, almost every account that we see or we audit has at least one of these things that they're doing that really could impact their account and campaigns tremendously, right? So if you stay to the end, we're also going to add an 11th tip that we think is just absolutely vital to scaling a successful campaign. So we can just jump right in. So the first aspect, the first thing that we see that agencies and ad accounts need to stop doing is really not taking advantage of conversions, and specifically offline conversions. So what an offline conversion is, it's basically, when someone fills out a lead form, that's conversion, right? But when that same lead becomes an application, that is an offline conversion, something we want to send back to Google and tell Google, hey, this lead became an application and it's worth $3,000 for my business. And you can actually configure these offline conversions to really, build a revenue-based bid approach. And so the way you do that is you go into new conversion action, you hit import, and then you can decide how you're importing this. So I usually do other data sources. You can actually import this through Google Sheet, which is really nice. And you're going to hit track conversions from clicks. So basically, how this works is that every time someone clicks on an ad, if you have account level tracking, you get a G-CLID. And basically, every click has a different G-CLID. And it's a string of numbers and letters that can identify a user. So when that user then becomes an application, you're able to send that data, back to Google referencing that G-CLID. So we're going to hit qualified lead because this is going to be an application. And there's always, I like to put two specific offline conversions, qualified lead and then converted lead. That way you can also show Google, what leads actually lead to sales, right? So if you're a realtor and you can say, hey, this lead closed on a home. And yeah, there's a sales cycle and there's a process, but building, a Google Ads account that is scalable takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it takes, sometimes weeks and months and years to get a campaign and account that's just really tuned up. So we're going to say, submit application. And then I like to put a revenue value attached, but we're going to use the same value for each conversion. So every application for this business is going to be worth $1,500. And you can leave the click-through conversion window at 90 days, data-driven, and hit create, continue. And then you're going to, follow the same process for actually, your conversion or your closings and your sales as well. So it's asking turn on enhanced conversions for leads. You click that, hit Google Tag Manager, and then we're going to import that. We're going to just do uploads. Like I said, there's going to be actually a separate section I'm about to show you where you can actually upload this data using a really simple Google Sheet. And just hit continue with enhanced conversion. And again, you're going to follow the same process for closings as well. Now, to properly import that data, you can do this manually. You can set up a Zapier, go into uploads, and just hit the plus button, select source. We're going to do a Google Sheet, and then you can link your existing Google Sheet. And then just follow the instructions. Make sure that this Gmail also has access to that Google Sheet. And I'm not going to actually pull up the sheet, but it's really basic. You just need to make sure you have the G-CLID, timestamp, and then the name of the conversion. So in this case, application. And again, you can build out full campaigns that are literally just driven towards applications or just driven towards closings. And if you're, you make your income utilizing a lead-based campaign, right? This might be new for you, right? This is something that e-commerce has been able to do very quickly because the sales cycle is instantly, and it's happening all on the same platform. So there's a little bit of integration that goes into importing offline conversions. But again, it is such a useful tool, and I think any really scalable Google Ads account that has 2,000 to 3,000 return on investment, they all use offline conversions. So again, highly recommend leveraging this tool in Google Ads. Okay, so the second, thing that I think I see a lot of Google Ad accounts doing wrong is not fully leveraging Audience Manager. So let's just hit Tool and Setting and hit Audiences. So basically, Google gives you So many different ways to build audience segments. And so you can hit the plus button. You can not just do website visitors. You can do visitors that visit a certain page, right? You can do visitors that have been on a site for 30 days, and you can just build this out kind of instantly, right? So we're gonna hit refine action, so we can do page URL contains, say you're a realtor and you have home search. So you can build audiences just based on people that are searching homes, right? Or if you have, two sides of this, you have the people looking for homes, but also the people wanting to list homes. You can retarget people using, the home listing page, right? Um, and again, every business is going to be a little bit different, but this way you can actually create two separate audiences to remarket, and you can use Google Display Network, Performance Max, YouTube, and build out really comprehensive categories. And another way you want to leverage the Audience Manager is not just from website visitors, but also YouTube views and people that have viewed your viewed your videos, subscribed to your account, like your channel, things like that. And the way you want to start with that is go hit Tool and Settings, and then you're going to go down to Access and Security, actually no, Linked Accounts, and then you have the ability to directly link your YouTube campaigns or your YouTube account with Google. And it's really simple. There's a way to natively do it. And if you have other, you can build it off Google Analytics. There's so many different ways you can build audiences. Once that's configured, you can actually go back, Tools and Settings, back to Audience Manager, and you can actually build audiences based on people that have watched your videos, right? And that's such a unique way to build audiences.
You can build out custom combinations where you can leverage people that have viewed your YouTube channel and have also been to your website. And that's a really cool function. And we can go back to the audience manager here, and then you can create custom segments. This is also a really interesting way to build new audiences and leverage audience manager. So you can build it off what people are searching, affinity audiences. So we can type in people who have searched for personal injury claims. And let's just see what comes up. Hit search. You can put, people also looking for law firms near them, right? Hit enter. And then Google's going to give you some basic impression projections, right? And this is just fascinating information. So you can build out an audience based on these two aspects, and this is going to be 51% female, age range between 25 and 34, parental status 61% are non-parents, and about 100 million to 500 million impressions. And you can get even more granular here, and build out different exclude certain aspects of people who browse certain types of websites, people who are on certain sites. So it's like you can put, hey, there's a law group in my area and people that have also been to their website, and just build this out to something that really is focused and can help you find new types of users. And that's the whole goal of Audience Manager, is really just segmenting different users from people that you don't have no exposure to your business to people that see your videos every day, right? Because those might be two different types of products, two different types of services. So you can hit cancel here, go back to your data, hit the plus button, and then there's also always customer list, right? So if you have, years and years of customer data, you can actually, plug them in right to Google and have it as an amazing data source you can leverage on YouTube, on search, on really any Google product. And it's a really simple, spreadsheet format. Just follow Google's guidelines, and they have a really high match rates. And you can have them on here. You don't even have to have an expiration for this one, which is really cool. And then you can also build it off like, hey, if you have a really large business and you have thousands of leads every month, you can say January 2023, February 2023, and build out customers or leads that have come through in certain months, in certain weeks, in certain years, right? To get even more granular. Okay, so the next, big tip, big thing I see happening is that, often people do not leverage the remarketing tag. And so they build a remarketing list, of website visitors, but because the tag isn't placed appropriately, often they don't actually have any data coming into that audience manager list, right? So the way you do this is go to your data sources and hit details. And then Google is actually going to give you a way to add this via Google Tag Manager. Again, this is something that slips through a lot of the cracks, but you just use the appropriate conversion ID. In Google Tag Manager, it's really easy if you have it already on your site. You're going to hit the Remarketing tab and then just add conversion ID right here, and then display on all pages. And then boom, then your data is now officially going to be connected to Google Ads appropriately, and you're going to have robust remarketing lists. And so again, this is something that slips through the cracks. We put it actually as a part of our QA process at Turnkey, just because it's so important to get this right. Okay, so that's going to be a really quick one. Make sure your remarketing tag is up and running. The next tip that we see really a lot is people are not using broad match correctly, right? A lot of times, they'll layer it on a GDN campaign, or they'll put just a bunch of random keywords together that aren't relevant, and they'll have small budgets. The big rule of thumb is this, right? Number one, if you're going to leverage broad match, you need to have already maxed out on all of your exact match variations, right? So you need to have robust exact match campaign that has an impression share of about 40%, right? That's usually when you start to tap out without seeing drops in some of your returns on those campaigns, right? Once you have a really solid exact match campaign running, I generally say, run a broad match campaign that's really focused, that's maybe 10% to at most 20% of your budget. And the reason why I say this is because broad match is not necessarily based on the search. A lot of times it's based on the user intent. So you can find, you can use it almost as a keyword discovery tool. So a great example, if you're a law firm and you've got great exact match campaigns, but you want to try to figure out, hey, where are these other searches? Are there other places I can, start to build out campaigns? You can start putting your most effective and converting keywords. It might be a law firm near me. It might be, law firm Atlanta. All right, put a handful of them, because just a few broad match keywords are going to explode your budgets, right? You're going to see it tagged as limited by budget almost daily, right? So put a handful of these keywords in this campaign, save it, let it run for about a week, and then come in and see, what are the search terms I'm looking for? What are the lead quality that I'm looking for? How much can I learn from this campaign about new types of searches and new types of queries? And this actually goes into my next tip, which is leveraging search queries effectively. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times people don't even go into the search terms report. They'll only go into the keywords report. Basically, a keyword is law firm near me, right? That's what you're trying to trigger. Your search term are the actual queries that get triggered, right? So when someone's searching for law firm near me, they might search highly rated law firms, right? Law firms in Atlanta that have been in business for 10 years. When you're using a broad match, you're going to get so many different types of queries that you can't find in a SpyFu, you can't find in a SEMrush. So you're going to want to make sure that when you do utilize the broad match this way, you're always going into the search terms report and you're always finding what queries are being triggered. And then what you do here is you actually download these, convert them into exact match, and build out even more effective exact match campaigns, right? Again, back to the original point. Broad match is being used not as a keyword discovery, it's being used as cheap leads quick. And often what I see, and not all the time, because we are able to leverage broad match with effective negative keywords, but often, their broad match campaigns are 60, 70% of the budget. They're getting cheap, low quality leads that are always getting tagged as, limited by budget. We need to spend more, right? You need to really put a tamper on your broad match campaigns and use it as a research tool not necessarily quick, cheap leads, right? Because quick, cheap leads often lead to lower ROI. I put a caveat in this because if you have a ton of data, you can connect broad match to a downstream offline conversion bid strategy where you're basically only finding people that convert applications. It takes time for these campaigns to really start to drive revenue, but it can be, kind of an automated system, an automated way to find people that are going to convert that are not necessarily basing it on the original search. So that's kind of 2 for 1, right? I wanted to touch on broad match. I wanted to touch on the search terms report and it being underutilized. And then the next aspect is really going to be, again, I kind of alluded to this already, not leveraging negative keyword lists. So when you're running campaigns, what I see a lot of times is just, hey, let's just throw in a few things, at random at the ad group level or the campaign level, right? I don't want cheap, I don't want free, right? The list goes on, and then agencies and business owners will just throw in a bunch of keywords they think might show up, and sometimes they're in one campaign, sometimes they're not in another campaign, sometimes it's at the ad group level, and honestly, that's a way to not really leverage these keywords effectively, right? What we do is we leverage keyword lists, and so we have, at the account level, we have industry lists, we have subcategories within industries, right? So in mortgage we have a whole list just for bad credit. We've got a whole list for annuities, a whole list for irrelevant is kind of like a category where it's like a catch-all. When you're looking at search terms, you find a bunch of random stuff you don't really know where to put it. We put it in our irrelevant category. We have a refinance negative keyword list just for purchase mortgage campaigns, right? We don't put that on the refinance mortgage campaigns, right? So you can get really granular, and this really helps you scale and make sure you can put proper guardrails on your campaigns. And the way you build these lists is really simple. You go to Tool and Settings, navigate to negative keyword lists, and then you can just build them at the campaign level, at the account level, and it's just such an effective way. So you just hit the plus button. For this example, we're going to do competitors, right? So just a competitor negative keyword list, and you can just put, I generally like 2 ways of putting negative keywords. A phrase match and then an exact match if I see a lot of versions of it, right? So say I don't want anything that has to do with free. I can just put quote, free, and then end quote. And 99% of these queries will not even come near my my targeting, right? But if I see a very specific brand term like Nike, I'm going to put Nike. We're also going to create a Nike.com variation. And then we can do another phrase match variation, right? And then we could call this it's another competitor list, right? So you can really, build these out in very effective ways and scale them to a lot of campaigns, build, guardrails, and it's a great way to make sure that you're not, showing up on bad traffic that you don't want, right? Okay, great. So the next tip. The next thing we see a lot that we really, want to, hopefully create some education around it is don't run search campaigns on the GDN or Google Display Network. So often, if you go to a campaign, you go into the settings, Google will automatically have networks checked, right? And so you go into your networks and you're going to see included in Google search partners or include in display network. Or even, you might be talking to your Google rep, they're saying, hey, you want to scale? Go onto Google search partners, go onto Google Display Network. And basically what a search network is, it's other websites that have search engines on them, right? Like Investopedia, different things like that, right? They have partnerships with Google where your ad could show up on, Investopedia search engine, right? The traffic on those types of search partners it's not quality, right? We want to make sure that we're really only showing up when people are searching in Google. So I always uncheck this. And then display network. I see a lot of, pseudo search, pseudo display campaigns that basically have search campaigns where your search ad is converted into almost like a banner ad and then shown on the side of of websites. And a lot of times, clients, they come to us with their account and they've got millions of impressions and super, cheap clicks, right? That's really what you get, really, really cheap clicks. And then they wonder why their conversion rate's so low. Because, more than likely, you're not bidding on quality traffic. You're bidding on bots, and you're bidding on, basically display ads on blogs, right? You want people that are searching for law firms in your area, that are searching for HVAC repairs in your area. We don't want to have your ads running on some blog, right? And so it's really important that you go to your campaigns right now and make sure all your networks are unchecked and save it. We want this to be a traditional search campaign. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to discuss a little bit is just budgets, right? And limited by budgets. Often, we go into campaigns and we'll see and I think everyone here that's watching this video that has run Google Ads campaigns for longer than a few weeks will see your campaigns at some point limited by budget, right? And this is for a few reasons. Basically, the search environment it's based on a few things. Demand and competitive pressure, right? So when your keywords have a lot of demand and not a lot of competitive pressure, it's basically supply and demand. There's a lot of supply and there's not a lot of demand. So you're going to be able to spend almost endlessly, right? However, like most people know, you only have an allotted budget for every month. But the way the algorithms work, if you are able to scale your budget and are not limited by budget, then you actually get priority in the auction. I've seen this a lot of times where my campaigns, let's see if we can ever get to this this budget view of all my campaigns, but my campaigns that are limited by budget versus my campaigns that are capped out will always see less efficiencies. And so I'll give an example. If I have two campaigns running, both for mortgage clients, one running at $300 a day that is not limited by budget, and then one running at $100 a day that is flagged by budget, the campaign that is not flagged, that is spending more, will always have a cheaper cost per lead, have a better conversion rate. It's just getting priority in the auction. It's really that simple. And again, it's not, for some reason, this isn't loading, and you don't need to see this to really understand what I'm trying to get at. But we can even just go into the campaign settings to configure budgets. But basically what I'm trying to say is that it's really important that you either max out your budget and you have to watch your campaigns like a hawk, until your budgets cap out and you're like, okay, if I have $400 a day and I hit that by noon, I've got to pull back to $1 a day, right? To ensure that I don't overspend for the next few hours. And if you do that, you will almost always see better efficiencies. The second way of managing this, if you don't want to be in your account every hour, is really just starting to cut some of the fat, put more intense negative keywords, drop some of the keywords that are, spending a lot and not converting a lot, right? Just a few of the ways that you can really limit, right? Limit some of the I like to say bias that the auction has, specifically centered around, limited by budget tags, not having a lot of budget. And I think, a lot of Google Ad accounts really suffer because, they don't have unlimited budgets, right? They need to make sure that they're spending, but when they get flagged, you're seeing, bigger CPAs and you're getting less for what you're paying for, right? So again, make sure you know how to leverage your budgets appropriately. You can trick the system and really scale them quickly and then drop them back later in the day. And yeah, there's a few ways to really manage the budget conversation, but it's something that we need to talk about because budgets are one of your most important tools. And that leads me to the next tip, right, is really, this might get some controversy. Stop using single keyword ad groups and instead use campaigns with single ad groups. And what I mean by this is that a lot of times, I'll grab a campaign and it has 100 ad groups, and each ad group has one keyword. And it's really hard to manage. It's really hard to figure out the bids. And the way that search is evolving, it's just not an effective way to scale anymore, right? So instead is that I'll build out a campaign. Let's see if I can find a good one here. And HVAC for Raleigh, right? Broad match. It's an ad group that has maybe a handful of keywords in there. And what we're supposed to do with this specific ad group is focus on people searching for HVAC companies. And that's really all it is. It might be 10 keywords, it might be 30 keywords, right? It might be 100 keywords if this was the exact match. And you want to just make sure that you're able to keep it really relevant and put them in a single campaign, because that way you can push and pull budget. Again, like I mentioned on the tip before, budgets are your most important tool to optimize your account. If you're seeing your HVAC company campaign perform better than your HVAC installation or your HVAC repair campaigns, you can push budget around really quickly without having all the noise of making bid adjustments at the ad group level, which again, it's harder to manipulate your budgets when you're just making, cost per click bid adjustments, right? Whereas you can put them all in one ad group and leverage budgets really easily, push and pull your budgets across campaigns and just make sure that it's relevant, right? Google often, with a level of automation and data, can go a little bit beyond that search to find users that do convert, right? That are looking for HVAC companies in your area. It might not be the specific word HVAC company, right? But you want to give Google a lot of different options, but also put on some of those guardrails, right? You still want to make sure your ads have your keywords in them. You still want to make sure your landing pages have those keywords in them, right? Make sure your campaign is operating, in the way you want your single keyword ad group to perform, right? To focus on relevancy at all costs, right? You're still doing that. You're just opening up, a few more keywords so that you can have a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more scalability, right? So that's my 2 cents on Skags and really leveraging campaigns with single ad groups. I just see them outperform Skags at much higher rates. And then the last tip here is going to be exclusion audiences. And what I mean by this is that, when you go into campaigns, you can go into audiences, and let's go into show table, right? So you've got a few audiences you can target, right? You can target demographics, you can target your remarketing, like I mentioned in the audience manager, you can target, your YouTube viewers and things like that. I very seldom see people use exclusions down here. And what I mean by that, right, is that like you can create 2 campaigns. A campaign that its sole focus is finding new clients, and then a campaign that's just trying to remarket website visitors. If you're trying to find people that are not exposed to your brand yet, exclude your remarketing, right? Put some guardrails. So you can actually, I'm going to exclude the people that have visited my website or have seen my YouTube videos, because this is about finding new users and bringing them into my funnel, right? So you want to make sure you're leveraging excluded audiences to, again, it's almost like exclusion negatives. You're putting guardrails on these campaigns just to make sure that they are, running effectively, finding the right target market. Great. So the last tip I wanted to add in here, which is actually, I think I added 11. I said I'd put 10, but I added 11. And this is actually going to be the 12th tip. It's going to be leveraging click fraud. And I'll make this quick, right? But we utilize ClickGuard. And what this does is, click fraud and bot traffic, it's a huge issue in digital marketing and digital media in general, right? We plug this in, and what it does is it finds invalid clicks, invalid users, and then takes the IP address, adds it to exclusion audience, and then excludes it across all your campaigns. So that way, you're investing in real people, real users, and generally I've seen campaigns that, really big campaigns save hundreds of thousands in a month and then reinvest that into quality traffic. And when you're able to see the type of traffic you're actually serving on when you plug in like a ClickGuard or even a ClickSees, it's going to be really painful at first, because you're going to be like, wow, about 5 to 6% of my budget every month goes to invalid traffic. What if I could reinvest that? What would 5% of your budget more every month do for your business, right? So it's something to think about, something to consider. Pretty easy, installation, but again, most of the agency accounts we look at, the client accounts, the brands, the campaigns we audit, don't have any sort of click fraud protection, which I think is a big mistake. It's an easy win for 50 to 100 bucks a month per account, and it's something you can report on and really see the type of value. So yeah, that is our exclusive list on the things you want to stop doing, the things you want to do, and all the best practices when managing a really effective Google Ads campaign.